Hello, and welcome back to Vanquish. In this part, we're continuing through with Act 1, and the first mission we'll be going on to is called Rescue. And this is one thing that I didn't properly explain in the first couple of parts, and I'll try not to make the start of every playthrough be, here's what I didn't properly explain last time, but, there's quite a lot of stuff to explain to start with. But the way this game structure works is that there are several acts, and each of the acts is broken into various missions. And overall, this is quite a short game, Vanquish. It's not like super short, it's not like 2D platformer short, but you probably beat it in maybe about 6 hours, maybe a little bit more if you're struggling, a little bit less if you're just good at shit. I don't know, but it's really not that long of a game, all things considered. Though saying that, one bit of criticism this game got, which frankly I think is absolute bullshit, is the Game Informer review, which said, don't be surprised if you finish your first playthrough in 4 hours or less. And I'm sorry dude, that is an exaggeration. I don't know who the reviewer is who wrote that. I'm just having a little glance at the reception section on Wikipedia, and no, you're not going to beat this game in 4 hours. Unless you... I don't know, I think there's a piss easy mode, so unless this was some dude who played on absolute easy and just ran past all the enemies or something, that's all I could possibly think of. I'm pretty sure I'm on normal here, but... yeah, you're not going to beat this game in 4 hours, that's just exaggerating. But on the whole, Vanquish's reception does seem to have been pretty positive. It's a game that, even before I ever played it, just through word of mouth, I heard a lot of good things. Whenever people would talk about, lesser known or not as often mentioned shooters, Vanquish would always come up. Vanquish would be, a lot of people I know say this is their favourite shooter. I've seen that opinion go around quite a bit, and honestly, I get it. It probably is for me. My experience with shooters isn't quite as in-depth with a lot of people, so it comes down to the fact that this is one where I get to go fast and I get to boost around and I get all these cool gimmicks to play with. But I just think this has got its own distinct character to it. I don't want to be that guy who says, no, shooters these days are shit, because they're not. There's still a lot of good shooters out there, and they've all got their audience. No matter how much people want to say, oh lol, Call of Duty again. That's one thing that I can say. Shooters are a genre I think get a lot of flack unfairly. Shooters and just games in general which have a darker, grittier art style. And I think the reason for that is that they're what appeal to the mainstream. If you look at any sort of sales lists, particularly towards the end of the year, Christmas sales sort of time, the top 10, probably at least 7 of the best sellers will be either a first-person shooter or an action game with this kind of darker, grittier art style. That I get that it's a sort of thing that's incredibly popular among more casual, well, not necessarily casual, but more mainstream audiences, and so some people might get sick of just hearing about it all the time. But you got to sort of take a step aside and realise that that doesn't mean the games are bad. Even Call of Duty, which is the go-to thing that, Call of Duty is the same every year. The games are similar. I'm not a big fan of Call of Duty. I'll play from time to time. Call of Duty is one of my multiplayer, switch my brain off kind of games. I'm not good at it. I'm that guy no one wants on their team. But Call of Duty, it's not this same copy and paste the game from one to the next. No, it's not. There is more to it than that. There's distinct theming. There's actually rotated developers, which that's common knowledge. But I think a lot of the people criticising the games unfairly don't tend to clock onto that. that little cutscene there. This is what gives the mission the rescue name, because we've got 3 of our guys strapped up, and we've got to basically just save them from their. It looks like some sort of experimentation pod. You can see him there getting zapped in the background, but it's the first of the missions that are like this, where it's like just clear an area to do a thing. So just clear the area, rescue the guy. They seem overly gratuitous in certain parts, and I think that's a little comment on characterization. It's established quite earlier on that Burns doesn't really give a shit about his men, or at least not properly. He hasn't really got that sort of emotional or friendly connection to his men. They're just like his squad. They're people who fight alongside him. And I think this is one of the earliest points where they're trying to tip you off about that. The fact that one of the guys in particular I seem to recall being really grateful, really thankful. I think there is a bit of placebo, maybe, or relativity involved with how I find this particular part really easy. Because this, compared to the last time I played the game before the patch, where it was a nightmare and I was dying constantly because I was taking more damage than I should have, going back to it now and I'm just shooting the guys and it feels like I'm absolutely fucking breezing through. Which, for me to be feeling with a section of a shooter, that's odd. That is very odd for me. Although it does feel quite difficult sometimes when you get guys showing up behind you, because if you look on screen, like, not so much now I've killed a few guys, but for the longest time there, it was like, there's projectiles coming from everywhere, and I think they colour-coded. I think that it is like the blue ones are allied projectiles and the red ones are enemy projectiles. But when you've got so much going on screen at once, God be damned if you're gonna tell which one's which then. Like, colour coding only goes so far in assisting you, you know. Now, I did notice a little bit there. Every now and then you will see like the odd frame flicker pop up as a cutscene's loading in. That's another thing, like a little quirk that shows up with the cutscenes in this game. It's not offensive. Like, that's why I didn't bother going through, like, you know, trimming out the extra frames. It's part of the port. It's not distracting, but again, it's another thing that you're gonna notice if you're playing through it. But yeah, we've just left our dudes down there. Which leads in neatly to this next mission, which is Trust. Because if you're on a team where everyone's risking life and limb and anyone could be shot and killed at any moment, you've got to trust each other. And having extreme ideals on a team might not work. If you've got the guy who wants to help everyone and the guy who just wants to achieve the goal through any means possible, that's a strange relationship waiting to happen. And strange relationships aren't good with what's at stake here. And that's why maybe having Sam is not a goody-goody, but he's at least got a moral code to him. Having him alongside Burns, who is the, like, tough guy, just wants to get the job done, wants to clear out the enemies and achieve his mission, it's going to be some butting heads from time to time. Probably the nicest way of putting it. If I'm gonna go back into this game's visual style a little bit, I mentioned in the last part that it's dark and gritty, and I wasn't entirely sure whether it's taking itself 100% sincerely or not. But one little factoid about this is the director of the game, Shinji Mikami. He has gone on record saying the general style of this game was inspired by a 1970s anime called Kassan. Casshern. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not. But that is an anime which it's got a few themes to it. I haven't watched it. I'm not going to try and bluff like I have from a description, but the information I can see on Wikipedia is it's about an android with human consciousness, and it's like taking over the world, like robots taking over the world, and the heroes going to save them, which it's nothing like the story here, but I imagine there's more themes to it that like get acknowledged in this game. But yeah, it's one of the things that sometimes when you hear references to things that like the creators took inspiration from, it's not always immediately obvious, but chances are there's like some kind of connection that the creator's mind took from it that maybe we wouldn't. I don't know. It's creators have their own ways of doing things. I'm just having a look at the page now, and what I'm getting from this description, and I'm probably gonna have to at least check out the anime or at least look up footage of it at some point because I'm curious now. It's reminding me of Mega Man, the description here, because like apparently this dude has a robotic dog, and like this character's robotic dog's name is Frenda, and there's also a girl called Luna, and like that to me it reminds me of, you know, Rock, Roll and Rush. Maybe I just have too much Mega Man on the mind, and that's just doing an incredibly common thing. In fact, it is. You know, that lineup, like man, girl, dog. You see that a lot, but when there's robots involved, like there supposedly is in this show, yeah, it's probably been inspired in some way. Like maybe Mega Man took from this, because, like I say, this was from the 70s, and Mega Man a little bit later than that. Mega Man wasn't around till the NES, so yeah, if there was any inspiration involved, maybe it was Mega Man taking from this Kassan show. But yeah, anyway, back to the actual game on screen. We have more of the idea of what I was talking about earlier about potential leading to strange relationships, in that Sam and Burns are having to work together, and we've got our first point where one of our men is directly in danger, and we have to have the full-on like shootout. You kind of get the idea that if Burns was in charge and Sam weren't there, that guy would have been completely fucked. Burns doesn't give off the vibe that he's a particularly caring leader. You know, they probably could have climbed over. It would have been safer, wouldn't have possibly had the option of blowing them up and killing everyone in one fell swoop. But never mind. The guy we tried to save got shot in the face anyway, so yeah, we wasted our time. And I just realised what I just said, and that sounds really fucking morbid. Don't bother trying to save someone in case they get killed. God, I'm a cunt. Sometimes, like, during these commentaries where there's parts where it's just standard gameplay and there's nothing, like, overly different on screen, and I start just puncturing things, and god damn. Like, yeah, maybe I should just let everyone die, just in case, like, they would have got shot by the Russians anyway. But from a gameplay perspective, this particular little route is interesting because you've now got this extra dimension going on, in that not only are there guys on the low route, there's also guys above, and you're meant to be focusing on the high level guys at the top. But by doing that, you have to turn your focus away from the guys on the floor. And that involves a degree of multitasking and planning ahead, which is an extra dimension of it, because so far it seems like the initial rushes of enemies, the waves that we've had so far, like, yeah, we did have the levels like on the lead up to the Argus fight, but that was really basic. Whereas then you seem to get more layers of combat, and this will keep evolving. Over the course of the game, there will become more and more things that you need to pay more attention to, and I think this game has quite a brilliant difficulty spike. There's nowhere where it really feels like that was unfairly difficult compared to the previous part of the game. Everything seems scaled accordingly, except for maybe one or two bosses. And like there's a part of the ending that feels like easier than it should be, but on the whole it just does progress fairly. And here we have a tank. And yes, I am gonna try and sneak up behind it and actually use the heavy weapon, compared to someone I was watching a while back who I seem to recall at one point trying to snipe the tank. Don't do that, guys. It's not smart. Hashtag subtweet. But yeah, tanks in these games, like, it's never a good idea to go all guns blazing, and this is another part where I'm glad I have the AR. And this is going to get confusing. I mean the alternate reality thing, not the assault rifle. But it's why I'm glad I have the slow motion thing, because then I can have that few seconds of safety just to get a few hits in, and then I can go back to my cover. So that's the second mission in this part down. We have one more mission left to go, which is probably my favourite from an aesthetic perspective coming up.
Your DARPA railguns are a piece of work, let me tell you.
And that particular mission is called Darkness, which will kick in. And this, what's coming up here, is one of my biggest criticisms of the game. And that's the sort of transferal phases where it's switching from one mission, you've just finished one mission, and you're going on to the next one, because there seems to be a lot of these sections where you're just waiting. You'll stand there, you'll wait for the rest of the dudes to catch up with you, or the next cutscene to trigger, or a barrel to slowly roll down the hill, which is going to happen right here. And I thought it was really funny while I was recording, because I was just waiting for the next thing to kick in, which I would have thought would have happened there once I got up to the main thing. But no, there's just this one barrel slowly following me. I don't know, like, is the barrel the big bad? No, probably not. Okay, can I do anything with it? No. I can push it back up, but I can't be asked. I do have fun here. I have the weirdest sense of humour with that kind of thing, but I do have fun here. But yeah, you see what I mean? That was way too long for me to have been standing in the right place, because I did already walk up to the barricades, didn't I? Like, you saw me walk straight up to the barricades before I started dicking around with the barrel, but no, like, it didn't trigger then, and I don't know whether it was a thing of I had to wait for all the guys to get into the little tunnel and then go up to it, which isn't clear. It's a little bit clunky, and like, clunkiness, it's never been a thing I've wrote games off for. Like, I like Sonic Adventure, for fuck's sake, so I'm not going to judge a game for being too clunky, but yeah, it's a thing that, you know, little mark on an otherwise great game.
Just one of you.
Mike 2 was destroyed by enemy fire, and Mike 4 had a mechanical.
Par for the course.
But yes, part of the reason why I really like this mission's aesthetic, I like having the approach in darkness. It kind of adds a bit more tension to the whole scene, because now there are going to be things coming at us, but it's just something about the way we're conditioned about darkness, I guess. You know, I wouldn't say it's a fear of the dark, because really the fear of the dark isn't so much the dark that people are scared of, it's more the unknown. Because you think darkness in itself isn't scary. there's nothing to be scared of in the dark. But why people might feel fear in that situation is that it inhibits your senses, particularly your eyesight. You can't see as far. It's a similar reason why some people might get uncomfortable in fog or in rain, because both of them things can restrict your eyesight as well. And that's the thing that I find personally, because I have quite poor eyesight. I don't think I've ever talked about this before, but like, I have to wear glasses. My eyesight isn't great. Like, I'm not completely blind. I'm not even like, you know, like difficulty in everyday life. But if I'm not wearing my glasses, I know it. I can only see a few foot in front of me clearly. Anything beyond that is just a big blur. I would find it hard to read something unless I'm holding it right up close to me. And I get a similar kind of feeling with that. Like, I get that sense of anxiety that I'm unsure of myself there, in the same way that I would imagine people who have a fear of the dark do. And that's why I can place myself in issues. Personally, I don't really go out in the dark that much, and when I do, it's normally in my area, which is, other than the occasional boy racer, it's quite quiet at night, so I ain't really got much to worry about. I don't have eerie sounds or anything. But that's why I think darkness, to lead it back to the game after this long spiel that went too far off, it's why I kind of think having these approach sections in the dark creates a particular mood that you don't quite get in, like, say, the area in the last mission where we were just going down the middle with guys on top shooting us. And I like that. I do like having this sort of extra tension. But on top of that, the main point of this particular mission is we've got to blow up a loads of barricades in this cave, like we did with the first barricade, but more so here, where we've got to plant even more explosives on this one, because it's a big one. This is something that I wouldn't be comfortable doing, blowing up barricades in a dark tunnel where I can't see shit, and the fact that it's a tunnel in the first place, and if I blow up the wrong part, I'm getting caved in. Like, I might end up in the fucking Angel Beats High School here. But there are a lot of guys here that, you know, clear out everyone before you start trying to fuck with the explosives, or at the very least, clear out everyone who's shooting at you at the immediate moment. The ladder animation seems so unnecessarily flashy. Like, Sam, just climb the fucking thing like a normal person. Like, at that point, you're just showing off, aren't you? Like, I could climb the ladder, or I could use my rocket thing for this one thing, then go back up to walking at the top. And yeah, I just did ignore my own advice of shoot everyone who's shooting at you first. I'm a dickhead. I'm stupid. What might not have been immediately clear as well, and yeah, I was stuck there until I pushed, but this is also an escort mission. I've got to stop the guys from defeating our reinforcement tank, because having that blown up when they're our guys protecting us, and after one of them, you saw in the cutscene that one of them's already been stopped. I don't want to lose anyone else. That'd be terrible. I'll just leave that to the side there, no one has to see anything. And another one. I do like these other enemies that we're fighting. I can't remember exactly what they're called. They sort of jellyfish kind of weird, creepy things. Because they're also playing off the explosives theme. I'm going to shoot at this when my guys are standing right next to it, because I'm a twat and I'm a hypocrite because I was making fun of Burns for doing the same thing earlier. But yeah, they're explosives, so you might have the common sense to think, okay, I'll stay back. And these little things crawling on the floor, they actually remind me of, I can't remember the name of the boss, but one of the bosses in Metal Gear Rising with Vengeance actually spawns little mooks like that. I've never actually beat with Vengeance, but I do remember some enemies like that. I should probably get around to beating that game, because what I did play of it I remember enjoying, but I remember it controlling in quite a fiddly way in parts, particularly with the camera. That was what put me off MGR. But ladies and gentlemen, what I've just picked up is the other weapon that's going to be my mainstay, and now my whole weapon get-up is complete. The rocket launcher is fucking beast. It is one of the ones that, as you might expect from a rocket launcher, there is really not that much ammo going around for the thing. So you have to preserve it, at least to a certain degree. But to either get you started on a boss, or if you're having a bit of trouble and you just want to, you know, get the fucker out of the way, it's useful to have. And it's also useful to have if you kind of let the guy get a bit too close to you, because you don't actually get any sort of knockback from shooting the rocket launcher. Like, it doesn't hurt you, there's no recoil to it. So if the guy's getting a bit close for comfort and he's got more health than you could comfortably shoot down with one of, you know, your other guns, your AR or your heavy machine gun, then what you would do is you just rocket him and, you know, finish him off. Just, it's a bit of safety. Just, it's like a thing that you can do to get rid of the danger, the immediate danger at the very least. But oh look, again, we have another point where I'm just standing waiting for the thing to trigger.
It's collapsing! Calm the fuck down! Everyone group up! Shove some tungsten up this tunnel's ass!
Roger that.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me next time where I'll be finishing off Act 1 of Vanquish. See you then.